What's happening, art family? Taylor Payton with thebeginnerdrawingcourse.com here today, and we are on our second video of learning to draw heads. Now, in the first video, which I will link in the description box, I mentioned that there were some additional studies even after that first full round of going into Pinterest and drawing heads from reference and then applying that to imagination-based drawings, wherein we try to close the gap between what we learned from our reference and how we're going to apply that to our imaginative work, meaning that we have no reference. So it's a really great process to repeat over and over and then evaluate what things are missing, what things are inaccurate, or what things you just want to implement that are more favorable than the things you're currently using. It's a really good basic process for learning to draw the head or for learning to draw essentially anything. There are so many ways to study and work out different shapes and angles and proportions and techniques to capture those things that it's really good to stick in one area for some time, just so you can get the full benefit of having looked through and researched and sketched and evaluated a lot of different subject matter in those fields. Basically, there's so much to learn between the nose and the mouth and the eyes and the ears and the eyebrows and the proportions and the hair shapes that you can spend a lot of time drawing heads and still be learning. And the learning and the discovery is the exciting part, because as you go through and study, whether it's on Pinterest, whether you are having people sit for you for portraits, or perhaps another modality, it's really important that you stick with one thing for a while. And that's something that will help you develop not only your artistic voice and a more cohesive body of work in that sense, but you'll also get the skill gain that comes with that. A lot of artists, and this includes me definitely, are afraid to stick with one thing for some time for fear that we will become limited. But if that is a thing that genuinely interests us and holds our attention and we have an affinity for it, it is one of the most surefire paths to artistic fulfillment. You will have a much better relationship with your work if you know what you like to draw and you learn about it repeatedly over a period of time by staying consistent and not breaking your habit chains. Drawing for 20-minute sessions every single day, multiple times a day, is an easy way to form some really nice habit chains that will pay large skill dividends to you over time. So this is to say that you will make some ugly studies. You will do some goofy looking heads as you're trying new techniques, experimenting within the confines that you're given, and testing out various ways to lay down marks or ideas. You need to give yourself some room to play, even if it's a study. So what you see me doing here is actually subdividing the head like it was a bread loaf. And I know that doesn't make a lot of sense logically, but art doesn't always have to be logical. I'm really just trying to think of what it would be like if all those shapes were broken up in certain ways. And the more that I play with those shapes and rearrange them and think about them from varying angles and ways that they are simplified, the better I get at understanding them comprehensively. And that's, again, from sticking in one area, but playing around in that limited space. So this is just another quick head sketch after doing some experimental head sketches. And I'm just treating Clip Studio Paint like a digital sketchbook right now. I'm working in the same file, and I'm just flipping through those quote-unquote digital pages and working on all these different ways to test what I'm learning. And in specific, that means the shapes of the eyes, the proportions, the stylization, the different hair shapes, and I'm really trying to get comfortable with it. I'm trying to have a feeling of fluidity. When you're fluent in a language and you're a native speaker of that language, you're not even having to think about it. You're just allowing the words to come forth because you trust your skill that much. You trust your native lingual elements. And I want that feeling for drawing heads or portraits or busts on the picture plane. I want that fluidity, that fluency. And whatever your goal may be when it comes to drawing, heads or dragons or cars, really the subjects are up to you. But the main point to really ascertain is that you want to create fluency by repetition, by study, by making it just a part of your everyday, because your subconscious mind and your neurology will far surpass you in understanding as far as the conscious mind goes. You can break some of it down, of course, but this repeated act will give you a bodily knowledge. It'll give you a different type of drawing knowledge that isn't easy to articulate with words, but when it comes to laying down marks on the picture plane, you will have a lot more potency. What I'm doing right now is I just open up two different windows. I have a fairly large monitor, so I just place them side by side, and this is studying from Nathan Fowkes. He is a phenomenal artist who I actually had the joy of witnessing give a small workshop when I was in California in 2015. And I learned a lot then, and I continue to learn a lot from him online by watching just the artwork he puts up and studying it. And sometime, I think if I ever want to get more into landscapes, I will look into some of his courses, perhaps on Schoolism. But I digress. I'm not trying to copy that head perfectly. I'm just trying to test out Clip Studio paintbrushes. Here was another piece that I selected. I will have to get the artist source and put it in the description box. I think it is at Obokhan, so Obokhan. And it is a really interesting character. She looks like she belongs on a Japanese candy box or something, and I wanted to draw her from a different angle. I'm always kind of riffing off the style that I'm selecting as reference because I got bored doing photo studies, so I started studying other artists. And then, of course, there's the more risque things that pop up on Twitter because it's Twitter. You guys know what it is. And I decided that I'm going to just try to draw from other artists their varying drawings or paintings from different angles. So that's basically what I'm doing here. Is I got a little bit tired of heads, but we're still in the category of figure drawing, and taking the head and placing it in the context of a full figure is also very important. So all the studies are kind of in line with one another, even if they're just roughly related. And I'm doing more of like a random thing by going to Twitter. I found a really cool image of a futuristic looking police outfit that I thought I would take and reference, because it's a really interesting way in the helmet to subdivide the varying shapes of the cranium and the countenance. And so I wanted to take that into account as I looked at this piece and replicated it in my own way. Just because, again, we just want to get in the habit of doing these types of studies because they serve us as we're doing our imaginative work. And a lot of the stuff that I teach in the beginner drawing course is the fundamental ideas behind image making, the principles that allow you to parse things. And when you're able to parse things properly, like the assignments from the beginner drawing course will teach you to do, or like a lot of the tutorials in the Art Maxian bundle teach you to do, you're then able to create at levels that just feel much more professional and well-rounded. You can go from a beginner to an intermediate artist relatively quickly if you will permit yourself the access to fundamental knowledge. And I'm not talking like crazy art theory, but stuff that's pretty simple to understand, terminology that goes in pretty easily. And then once you have those terms in your head, it tends to really help your work evolve. So that's always my goal for you, is to make sure that you have the tools you need to grow your artistic caliber. Because I found that those tools really helped me in a place when I really felt so stuck and I was absolutely miserable because my art had failed me so many times and I didn't know how to get better. But then I discovered these magical books by Andrew Loomis, George Bridgman, and other amazing teachers who are no longer with us. And I learned their principles and I made them my own. And now I teach those things to you. As far as what's going on Right now, I am drawing Billy and Mandy from The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. It was one of my favorite cartoons as a kid, and when it comes to having a genuine love for something, you can express that love in your own style, and that's basically what I'm doing. I'm testing out all of the knowledge that I have acquired through both of these head study videos, which I have put out so that you can learn these methodologies of artistic self-improvement. And I am just pushing them into a little fan art portrait piece and just trying to reimagine the characters, around the same age. So they're like in probably early middle school, and they have their own facial features and personalities. And I'm trying to accentuate their personalities with the facial features. So I'll just drop an image of the original characters up on the screen now so you can see that this is basically what I was taking inspiration from. I didn't actually go look at them because I wanted to, again, really test my imagination. It was a really funny show, and I'm sure you can find tons of clips on YouTube. It had a lot of kind of dark black comedy in it because that was just the vibe. And some of the stuff I love when cartoonists can get away with writing things that are more adult. And even as an adult, you go back and watch the shows, and it's great. I went to school for animation for a reason, but I digress. Basically, this is just a test in terms of not only one of my brushes, the 2B up there in Clip Studio Paint that I imported from Grigor Rutkowski's brush pack. I'm probably saying that name horribly, and I apologize, but basically, I'm just testing brushes, testing knowledge, and applying it in a way that has, again, another constraint. It's portraits, it's fan art, and I'm just thickening the lines, having a little more emphasis on the drawing. I could totally see doing a comic in this style if I can find a nice way to clean everything up a little bit more, maybe. I think there are some comics out there that are fairly sketchy, so it's fine. But you can see how all of this drawing mileage really starts to pay dividends in terms of what you're able to do with your imagination. And I've been doing this for a very long time, so please don't get comparisonitis. It's really about your artistic journey and making sure that you're learning in the way that feels best to you. What I aim to offer is present multiple modalities of learning that permit you to cling to the ones that really fire up your neurons, that really get your brain and heart going. Because the more you can involve your physiology in the process, as far as positive involvement goes, the more you're going to be able to get from it. When you have a genuine interest in the subject matter, you will get a feeling in your chest. And it is a feeling of inspiration, a feeling of wanting to move forward. And it's just really helpful. Another good marker is that your brain will still be winding on it by itself, and there will be probably, I don't know if it's serotonin or one of those other feel-good chemicals. I don't claim to have expertise in this area at all, but you will start to get excited again in terms of what you're thinking about. And that's always a really good indicator, because you could be watching this head drawing video and you really do love characters, and maybe the head stuff isn't as exciting for you, or you haven't found a way to parse it in a way that's exciting. But again, then just select a course and go all the way through it, build your discipline, your raw discipline, while still getting better, and always be asking yourself the question, what do I really like? What really gives me inspiration to think about? And for me, a lot of it is figure-based. It's people-based. I love outfit design. I love different facial features. I love builds and physiology. People want to talk about how, some have big bones, some have small bones. We have all these different shapes and sizes. There's so many different ways to reinvent different outfits with materials, points of termination, etc. Heads, there's no two faces are 100% identical unless they're, twins. They get closer and closer in degree to that. So I'm just going in and testing some heads here with the same brush because I really like the feeling of it. Feels like a 2D pencil on some interestingly textured paper, and it's just a great way to kind of bookend the study session, is by doing a bunch more heads from imagination that aren't fan art, because of course you got to test out your own prowess and caliber. That one's sort of an anatomical study, something like I would break down in Simple Anatomy for Artists. You see, I do a lot of subdivisions and a lot of, teacher style drawing, as it were, because that's just what I've developed over the years to not only teach myself, but to teach my students. So Simple Anatomy for Artists is also available on thebeginnerdrawingcourse.com. Basically, the video is coming to an end now. I just really want to thank you guys because we are on the precipice, as of this recording, of the 30,000 subscriber mark. I appreciate each and every one of you. I'm not going to say like, subscribe, and all that stuff. If you like the channel, you'll hit the button. And I just really want to say that I wouldn't be able to break this stuff down over the years and continue to improve myself and improve the art of thousands of artists with their own efforts if I hadn't been finding the support I found on YouTube. All the comments, all of the course sales, all of it helps to advance not only your art, but give more quality content to artists everywhere. So let's just all keep growing, learning, sharing, and making the best drawings we can, finding fulfillment in the things we truly enjoy, and finding solace in our artistic endeavors. I really, really appreciate you, and it is an honor to serve you in this way. I will catch you in the next video, and take care, happy creating, and keep on drawing.